And we're live. Hey, everybody. Uh, I am Nathan here. We are here today to recap episodes 1 and 2 of Survivor Angelica, the latest season. I am here with the one and only namesake, Parker.
Hey Nathan, what's going on, man? I'm just as shocked as you are that we haven't been fired yet from this podcast, so they let us to come back. I'm shocked.
As they say in Starship Troopers, we're here till we die or they find someone else better.
That's
Uh,
right. That's right.
And speaking of someone else better, we are also here with longtime Angelica crew member Chris. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, guys.
Now, Chris, we were
Uh,
just backstage talking a little bit, about your time, but just for maybe anybody who's not as familiar with you, why don't you tell how did you get started with Angelica? What have you been up to with the series since you started?
Sure. So I've been on crew for Angelica for about 10 years now. So I was telling Parker and Nathan that I essentially married into the crew. My wife Elisa has been on the crew for even longer than that. She is the queen of our Ponderosa when when folks are there. So I married in. I started by picking up a camera and helping out because I think someone bailed at the last moment, um, and it's just evolved since then. I mean, I'm a bit of a project manager by trade, so I really help out in just overall operations behind the scenes, making sure all the trains are on the tracks and that everybody has an opportunity to do what they do great for crew.
so what does that look like in practice? Are you saying you like divide up duties? You help with scheduling? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think some of those things definitely. I mean, we do kind of run the operation a little bit like a side business, right? So, we have all have real jobs and other things that are going on in life, so we have to constantly get together. And then there's just the planning aspect and what goes on the weekend up. So, what's the schedule look like? How does everything come together? We have an awesome crew. Mean, I see Jason just joined us as well. Obviously, you guys are super familiar with Jason. He's like the front man of the band, right? But we have other crew members that put in a ton of blood, sweat, and tears too. Just to give a shout out, I mentioned my wife Elisa, who runs Ponderosa, but Vale Crandall, also very intricately involved with challenges and game operations. Her husband Jason Crandall, super creative, builds a lot of the unique challenge, pieces that we have in the game, and also helps with camera. You guys know Brett from both being a player and now a very trusted crew member. He's kind of takes the lead on some of the production aspects of the game and is doing all the edits for this season. Killer job with his company Brumble Digital Marketing. And then obviously we have both Kurt and Brian, who are like the godfathers of Angelica and fill in wherever they want, really. So whether it's camera or playing or different aspects on crew with creative engines and ideas and those types of things. We all have to come together and plan this stuff and put together hopefully a great event for the people who play. So, how can we do that the best way possible and leverage all the talents of the different people involved? So that's kind of where I sit, and it's just a blessing to be able to work with all of these folks who just do it for fun. So it's really cool.
Jason, how are you doing?
Doing okay. I tried logging on from a couple of different computers. We were having difficulties accessing the microphone and camera, and I couldn't find the pop-up to allow it. So I just said I'm going to go old school with the phone. My iPad wasn't charged. I dropped the ball on that one, so I couldn't use it. So here I am on my phone. Doing well. How's everybody doing?
So we shouldn't expect a technology challenge in Angelica's future. Is that what you're saying?
Not if I have anything to do with
it.
It may be a little bit easier than the 3 puzzles that had to be solved this last episode.
Yes.
Jason, I want to get your take on it. We just had a great chat with Chris, explain what he's up to. Of course, we know you're the host. You've done a great job. But last time we actually had you on last season, you teased that this season would actually have a new location and it would give you guys a lot more room to play with challenges and do some extra stuff. And I have to say, you see it right there on the footage. This campsite looks incredible. It looks like you have a lot of room to play with different ideas and challenges. Just can you talk to us a little bit about what all you're able to do with this new location?
Yeah, I mean, really, it allowed us to expand on everything we've always wanted to do as far as making these challenges a little bit bigger, go a little bit longer, and just have the room to play and really enjoy the space. And so, we came upon this opportunity to go to this new campground, which, they're brand new. We're brand new to their spot, and they're brand new to even being a campground. So, there was a lot of learning to, adjusting to their location and figuring out what's going to work for us. We made a few visits there early on. One was just kind of like a walkthrough to see how it would work out. And then we went down again for another walkthrough, and then again for a help day to kind of help the campground get the place ready to go. we were really part of, their success as much as they were part of ours. So, but yeah, it just was super exciting to be there. And, we really got the wheels turning with some of these challenges for this season.
Did the spooky children's voices over the walkie-talkies help or hinder your progress here?
It just helped the ambiance of the whole theme that we had going on. And, it was really crazy because we heard it on ours, and then we heard it on some of their radios that they were using. I think it was just kids somewhere in the campground, but still, it was just kind of a spooky little thing to have go on.
Yeah,
Jason, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
It was actually really cool because it just fed into the theme that we got too. And huge shout out to Letchworth Valley because they were amazing to work with as well. We went there for the first couple visits that Jason mentioned, and there's a story behind the campground, and it was like an abandoned religious camp, and there were leftovers from that, right? So all over the campground, and it fed the whole theme that we had for the season. I mean, after making those couple of visits, we were just like, wow, there's some really unique things going on here. Some of it's a little bit creepy. Some of it's, some of it we could probably lean into a little bit for this first season here. And that was kind of that was the foundation of where we kind of went from there, which was really cool.
Jason, I wanted to ask you about that because, my familiar with Angelica only goes back to the seasons we've covered on YouTube. So my knowledge is a little bit limited, but from what I understand, most of the seasons have been named after, the year that it took place in. Survivor Angelica 2021, 2022, whereas this season takes a little bit of a different approach, Blessing and Curses, a whole title, and centered around the theme. You guys have had twists and themes throughout the years, I'm sure, but talk to me about why such a big change in going all in on the theme for this particular season.
Well, I think we had the ability to create the logo, have the graphics, have the theme, and really we wanted to go all out with this new location and really put our foot on this spot and really say, this is ours. This is where we want to call home, and just give it a shot and see how it goes. So we really put everything on the line for this grand opening season at this location. So, in years past at the Evergreen Trails campground, it just kind of was we just called ourselves Survivor Angelica, Survivor Weekend, Survivor Game Weekend. It was whatever we could think of at the time. And then like you said, started putting the years in there. Maybe once or twice we did a theme to it, but we didn't really have like a logo to kind of match along. We would maybe doctor up another logo of some sort, but this really gave us an opportunity to have fun with it. And Chris, maybe you can elaborate a little more too. I'm not sure if I hit everything on that one.
No, I think you nailed it. I mean, it was really starting with the new place, and then where the concept ended up taking us, just, it was endless in terms of what we could do from a creative perspective. And we just really ended up leaning into it quite a bit. So, I think Jason summed it up pretty well.
I'm also curious. One thing that I always like to think about, and again, it may not have much significance anyway, but the tribe names, you know, do the tribe names come from anything in particular? Where did the tribe names come from this time around?
Yeah, so part of the theme, so we came back from the campground, we were having our early stage meetings and everything, and we were trying to figure out, you know, conceptually what we could build and frame up the whole game around. And I think it was actually Elisa and Val came up with, hey, because of some of the undertones, what could we do a voodoo theme or something along those lines? And then we kind of just riffed on that idea a little bit, and we were like, oh well, if we did that, we could have tarot cards and we could have voodoo dolls, and we could kind of run off this whole theme, and it just had so many legs that's ultimately where we took it. And then we had to fill out you know all of the logistics of that. And I think as you guys continue to watch some of the episodes, you'll see like how many different layers there are with the concept of blessings and curses, and then healing and hexes, which are kind of like social capital, and so on and so forth. So it was like the feeling we got from the campground, and then translated into, okay, man, how can we use like that feeling that we left there with, and it just spun from there.
Before we jump into the episodes themselves, I would love to just hone in on the cast, big picture. Obviously, when you cast a new game, each person stands out. They're each here for a reason. But I'd love to ask Jason and Chris, in y'all's opinion, if you were to summarize this cast as a whole in just a word or two, what do you think is the best word to summarize this particular group?
I mean, for me, I would say both. If two words, I would say diverse and very agile. It was from all walks, and they pivoted and maneuvered and kind of worked their way through the game and previous knowledge very in a very cool way. So I think those would be the two I would use.
Yeah, that's pretty good too. I think the other thing I think I would come up with was resilient, just because of how things sort of go, and just the long weekend, the long game, the format, everything. They really brought it all, and we made sure that the people we were casting. This was a really tough decision for all of us to figure out who we wanted, and it got to a point where we wanted to just take everybody, and we had to really kind of hone in on who we thought would bring great footage to us, great personalities, great gameplay, but then also keep some in the distance for another season too. So we don't want to burn everybody out in just one one go around. So we've got some reserves we're hoping we can pull up for this season too, for 2024. So we'll see how it goes.
And it's such a blessing and a curse to get so many great applicants, because on one hand, great, you have a lot of people to pick from. On the other hand, you feel like, oh, this person would be great, but there's just not a spot for them, or there's just only so many people. And like you said, you got to have future seasons, great appeal for them. And sometimes I think people, if they don't get picked, they're like, oh, what did I do wrong? Did I do this wrong or say the wrong thing? And sometimes it's probably not even that. It's just there was only so many spaces. It wasn't them in particular. So yeah. That's a good way to look at it. That I'm sure you guys encourage people to apply if it doesn't work out the first time.
Yeah, 3/4 of the time, that's the way it is these people apply, and it's just like, it's not that we don't want you. We want everybody. So anybody that didn't get cast last season, please, if you applied, apply again. I know there's a few that we've reached out to that said, hey, we'll talk to you in 2024, but it's always good to shoot us an email and make your name known. We may forget. We do have some markers out there for people that we want to contact again, but anybody that applied again that wants another shot, just keep applying. You're going to get on our game. I mean, come on. It's not like CBS. We're going to get people cast eventually.
It may not happen the first time, but it'll happen, whereas,
right.
You got some people on CBS, they've been trying 20 times, however long it's on. It's just, the odds are much better here.
Way better.
Nathan, what is your just first rapid fire thoughts on this particular cast? His internet might be slowing down.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good. You were just on mute.
One thing I noticed about this cast, I really, really like this group of people. I feel like there's a lot of energy with it, a lot of people who are very trigger happy, a lot of people who are really itching to get going with this. I also noticed, I don't know if this was a conscious decision, the cast felt younger than in past years, at least the past few seasons. Jason, do you want to speak on any of that?
You know, it's hard to tell. I feel like we try to mix it up as best we can. It does seem like there was some younger faces in there this year. It just happened to be that their personalities and their energy, like you said, I think the energy that these people brought was really what we focused on. It just, we knew they were going to bring the right attitude and the right personalities to what we want to see, and smiling faces, the laughing, the singing, just everything. Like the drama, just it all created what we wanted. And so, yeah, that the energy was definitely there, and maybe the age had something to do with it, but we also had some on the older end of the spectrum too. So just as much energy there.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is jumping a little bit forward, but the first confession that we hear from Kai, going back a second ago, of someone who didn't work out the first time, talked about how unfortunately she wasn't able to make it due to having, needing a surgery. So of course, very valid reason not to come. Jason, how cool was that for you to get this person back who was going to play before? It just didn't work out, but she was able to make it work this time around.
It was great. We actually had several players that, for medical reasons, could not make it the season prior, and so to have them show up was just great. And to contact them back and say, "Hey, you were casted. You had a medical emergency. We totally understand it. Would you like to come in for our 2023 season?" And it was 100% yes from everybody across the board. So, Kai felt terrible for her. I remember getting the message that she had surgery, that I think her appendix burst. And I was like, no. And she's like, I don't know. I might be okay. I was like, no, we're not. We'll just cast you again next year. Because it was like it was like the weekend before, so there's some recoup time. And I'm just thinking to myself, it's a weekend game. And I'm sure she's thinking the same thing. But we all knew it wasn't going to happen. So, but just a tough personality. She's definitely, again, resilience. We had 3 people that all were sick in different varying forms. And they made it to this season and really showed us their true colors, and I love it. I think it's great.
Chris, that really is the kind of person you want, someone who's just had surgery saying, I'll be okay enough in time. I might be dragging 1 foot behind me, but I'll make it there. Like, that's the kind of commitment you want.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It definitely is. But, I mentioned earlier, the project manager in me says that's a risky move. We may want to save her from herself in that season and get 100% of Kai in the next season. I think that worked out well.
Well, we
Just
go into... Go ahead, Nathan.
Real quick, before we get into the actual chronological order of things, has anyone from this cast played Angelica before?
No, I don't think so this year, right?
No.
Jason?
Nope.
No, all fresh. No Angelica folks this year.
That's cool.
That's
Because
interesting.
Yeah, because I remember last year we were talking, and Alyssa had to be a last minute addition because someone else couldn't make it. She stood up there, so that was good. But that's actually, I think, the very first thing we hear in the episode, Jason, is you talking about how not only was everyone on time, but everyone was able to come in clutch. Nobody, ghosted y'all at the last minute. So that's got to be a good feeling off the bat if this is a continuing pattern.
That was such an awesome feeling to have everybody show up. I'm getting phone calls and text messages at like 10 o'clock in the morning, like, hey, we're like 20 minutes away. Where do we hang out? Hey, I'm an hour away. And it's, people are coming from all over, and I'm so nervous. We're all so nervous. It's one of those things that if we can get past this initial phase of the game and get everybody here and do our introductions, then everything else, there's nothing else that could really get in the way of that. That really builds the momentum for the weekend. So to start off right from the bat on a great positive note like that, and then everybody's energy at the beginning, just happy to be there, wanting to be part of this. And for us being at a new location, a new season, the whole dynamic was just perfect the whole weekend. It was great.
Everyone's appendixes were working in good shape. No complications in that respect.
None. Chris, it's so interesting, and you talked a little bit about Brett and his company editing the episodes, but one thing I noticed throughout all of these first two episodes is there's not only just one, there's several different music cues for background scenes, and I don't have much of a music background, but I know when I'm watching a show, music can really enhance a scene and what you're feeling. Can you just talk to us a little about what it was like getting all these different scores in the episode?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that Brett is just wonderful with, and obviously, that's challenging in and of itself because there's copyright stuff that needs to be worked around, and it's great to have someone who works with that type of with those type of constraints on a regular basis, right? So he knows how where to get the stuff and how to make it all legitimate, but also to try to build tension where that may be applicable, and even to use some of the actual music that we used on site, like in the fortune teller cabin, for example. So, I think he just does a really good job in taking what's available out there and meshing that in and using it to kind of take us on the journey along the way in the episode. So, yeah, that's all Brett, man. He's really good at what he does.
And he wasn't wearing cleats this time, so his work counted.
God forbid.
Learned his lesson.
So we start off with tribe divisions, actually. We have our green tribe, Loa. Is that how you pronounce it?
Loa. Yep.
And purple in Baka.
Yep.
So can you go through your thought process, just because I'm sure you take into account physicality, age, gender breakdowns, and all of that. So can you go through the thought process with this?
Go ahead, Chris. You look like you're going to say something.
Yeah, well, I think it's multifaceted, right? So I think knowing that we had a lot of people who had played in other games before, the first thing that went into it was to try to divvy them up between the two tribes as much as possible. So, we were not, we knew that going in. We knew that we had a lot of personalities and a lot of people that probably crossed over in some way, shape, or form. And we wanted to try to kind of strategically seed those out as best we could, knowing that we weren't going to be able to do it in all cases, and also knowing that what we built into the game would mix it up enough where that wasn't really going to be an advantage or even a disadvantage to anybody. So so we kind of use that as a framework, but we draft while we're there. We all get there early and we get together around a bonfire the night before, and we put it all down on paper. We had it all etched out. Who's played where, who's done this. Okay, here's your pool to pick from. And we let kind of the people who own the camera crews for each of the tribes lead that. We just kind of went in with some stipulations. Hey, we should probably get these couple people on separate tribes and so on and so forth. But then it's, that's a pick 'em for the camera crews that own the tribes. Obviously, to your point, we want to get some division with gender and things like that. But that's how it goes down, and it's always a lot of fun to do. It's possible there could be some edits towards the end of the season that share some of those behind the scenes things. I don't know. I'm not making any promises on Brett's behalf, but that's how those tribes come to be. And then, we all do some, betting and stuff after that as well.
I was about to say, I heard pool, and I don't know why. My first thought was betting pool. I was like, is there money being thrown down?
It's more friendly than anything else, but we kind of say, all right, who's your bet on? And we go around the bonfire and do that after the tribes are picked as well. So it's a lot of fun.
We are not throwing stones, by the way. Parker and I have each spent a lot of money betting on real foot people over the years. So.
No, I was about to say that wasn't shade at all. That was trying to clarify, because I feel very at home with that statement. So yeah. It's just for fun.
How can you not?
It's just a good time. It's fun. You have your opinions on it. No, exactly. How can you not? After the tribe division, Nathan, if there was something specific that you noticed in that, please cut me off. But I loved after we get the teams, we go to the campsites, and we get our first look at the voodoo bank. And I really thought this was a fun little bit where y'all gave them each these little dolls and to decorate it to look like themselves and put it in the voodoo bank. I'm very intrigued by this twist. I know you guys can only say so much. We don't learn too much about it so far, but talk to us about where did the voodoo bank come from?
Yeah, I think that's another one where I think as the crew was kind of talking about the theme and what it might look like, giving them an opportunity to create and decorate some voodoo dolls is always good at the beginning to create some just natural interactions and things like that. They also get a supply kit that maybe they do other things with, but I think as you see some of it unfold a little bit more, it really lends itself into the social currency that's in the game. It's not giving anything away. It actually would probably help set the foundation. Is that blessings and curses is the theme, and people will have opportunities to get blessings and or curses in the game, and those are basically advantages and disadvantages, right? And what we wanted to do is layer on top of that this whole aspect of social currency in the form of healing and hexes, which would either increase or decrease your odds of getting a blessing or a curse. And where those healings and hexes were applied were at the voodoo bank, right? So that's how you got to apply either good fortune or bad fortune onto yourself or others in the game.
You all have been playing a lot with in-game currency these last few seasons. Obviously, we have the blessings and curses here, and last time we had the keys, which I'm all for this. I really think the in-game currency is something that hasn't really been explored on the CBS show to its potential, and I find it really interesting here. While we're going ahead and talking about, let's go and discuss all the twists, because that, to be blunt, that's also one of the things I'm most interested in. After the first challenge, we see the fortune-telling booth, and in my opinion, the most impressive work you all had with sets and editing and lighting and all of that. I mean, you all printed out your own cards, like professional dealer grade cards. So can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So what was interesting is as the theme continued to take form, there was so much that we could do with it, and to kind of to come up with the voodoo cards and to actually we had a collection of blessings and curses that we all printed on cards and everything else. And the funny thing is at first we didn't even want to have like a live person doing the dealing of the cards. I mean, one of the things you'll see with our game is we try to minimize the amount of impact that we have on the game during the weekend as much as possible. So, not to have any of that, but the way that the concept kept going was, we wanted the people to truly understand that it was being completely randomized, and that, there was, they actually had to pick the cards and bring their currency into the fortune teller, and, that would impact the amount of blessing or curse cards that they were dealt. And, the only way to really do that would be to have somebody in there actually dealing the cards and taking them through the process. But what you'll see is there's never a word spoken in there. It was all kind of instructions and, pointing to what they needed to do, but there was no verbal dialogue happening in the fortune teller cabin because they needed to go in and figure it out for themselves. And it was pretty straightforward in what would happen in there. But, once we determined that we were actually going to do that, then we had to make it as cool as possible, right? So, how do we build on the theme? How do we build on the experience? How do we give, you're stepping out of the woods and you're, swimming and running around in fields and challenges, and then all of a sudden you're in this place that feels completely different. And we thought it would just, add to the amount of, just mental fatigue that would be happening within the context of the game. And it was just a lot of fun to work with. I don't know, Jason, do you have anything to add there?
No, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. That's really what we were aiming for, was just this extra piece, just really make it what it was, but also to, I don't know, maybe give them something to look forward to, but also to talk about once they've been there and experienced it. Like the first, few people that go there, their minds are blown, even the reactions when they walk in. I know sometimes the footage is hard to tell because it's so dark in there, but it was definitely an experience for them. And the whole concept, I think, really played to us wanting to go all out for this season. And again, right down to the custom made, cards and everything.
That's something that I really appreciate about this whole set is, you see on CBS Survivor and even Big Brother, if you want to extend it, where, maybe they'll start with a theme, but it'll kind of peter out as the season goes along, or maybe they didn't go out as much as they could have. And where y'all have this whole room dedicated to this part of the twist, and, with cobwebs and fog in the air, and it's dark, and a whole table and print out cards. It's just, I was excited just watching it, from at home. So I can imagine how cool it is to actually get to be the players experiencing themselves. Y'all really committed to the bit, and that's fun to see. If you're going to have a theme, you go all out with it, because that's how you can trust it. And I think the players probably felt that energy too. So I really give you all a lot of props for that. I will say, Chris, I totally hear what you're saying. It's good to not let y'all be as involved as much as possible, to make them not feel like you're tampering the game. But I have to ask, who was the method actor in this role? Because they did a very good job. I need to know the name of this actor.
Oh,
yeah. Yay!
Yeah, there was a lot that kind of went into what was going on in there, and everything from how many cards were printed to taking cards out after, there was like 3 of each card for blessings and curses. And, once one of them got picked, we removed the other 2 until we got to a point where if the numbers worked out the way, in a way that was necessary, we would add them back in. So there was a whole lot of just, things happening in there. So, it was one of the things that I ended up sitting in there. And it was definitely, I didn't see the end of a challenge this year because of how the structure of the game worked, and when people went to see the fortune teller and having to get that situated and ready for our visitors. And I think, as you see some of the future episodes, there's some funny stuff that happens in there.
I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm sure you did a great job as well. Just in these first 2 episodes, that's a hard bit to play. You don't want to smile or smirk or give anything away. And I didn't notice that at all. So I think you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you.
Nathan, what was there anything else that you noticed before we got to the challenge, or maybe something else you wanted to add with the fortune teller?
So in the booth itself, you said you printed out a certain number of cards and there were duplicates of each one. When McKenna goes into the booth for the first round, are all the cards available in that first round, or are some reserved for later?
So all the cards were shuffled into the deck in the first round. So that was the full gamut of blessings and curses. And I think when McKenna went in, she didn't have any hexes or healings on her. So the way it worked is that each person would ultimately get six tarot cards to choose from. The base amount was, 3 blessings and 3 curses. And that's how it would stay if your currency was even. And then, depending on currency, that can dial up and down. So she had the full allotment of blessings and curses available to her at that point.
This is jumping off of McKenna's visit, but, it's one thing that happens a lot, especially with, the new scenes of Survivor. They're going to the journey, they got to make choices and then come back and decide, tell the truth, are you going to lie, that sort of thing. And McKenna was in this position. This is a classic case of Sunday quarterbacking from home. It's like, oh, why did they do that? I would have done it differently. So I was curious from a production standpoint, how did y'all think McKenna did at just coming clean right out of the gate? Is that the play here, or could she have handled it differently?
I think because of how early in the game we are at, and just because of the amount of different things that are going to happen in our season, I think they know to expect that we're bringing it all. And, the voodoo bank was a telltale sign that there's more to come. So I think that to play it safe was probably the best move, and to build some social strategy in there. Why not be honest and just see where it can get you in the game?
You agree with that, Chris?
Yeah, I think so. For McKenna at that point in the game, it was probably the right move, in my opinion. I mean, it's one of those things where the way we set it up is, the losing tribe, ultimately had somebody going to the fortune teller, and as a crew, that was what we wanted. We wanted to put stuff into the game before people were going to tribal council, right? So, that was going to create a dynamic of just constant flow within the strategy aspects of the game, either positive or negative, right? So at that point, nobody really knows what's going on. They're still trying to feel it out, and to come up with some kind of story, I just if it was me, I would have been like, I'm going to get myself into trouble trying to make up a story on this thing, and I just want them to feel safe. I'm going to tell them what happened. If it makes them feel better, I'll leave it at at the cabin or whatever she promised during the episode. But I think at that point in time, because it was so new and people were trying to figure out what it meant and what it was, I think it was probably the right move. But who knows?
No, and I love to get y'all's opinion, as y'all are the ones behind the scenes. If it was me, I would have done the same thing, because one, I can't keep up with the story. You have to come up with a story, make it believable, stick to the bit. And then also, it doesn't help because even if maybe she made an assumption that she'd be the only person going in the season, she doesn't know that for sure. And as soon as the second episode, we found out it's going to be, I assume, a season thing. So it's no reason to lie when someone will turn right around, go and say, oh, she lied here. So it's just one of those things. It's better to be honest if it's a continuing pattern, I think. So I always, again, each thing is circumstantial, but I always wonder why people aren't just more honest about these things, especially being the first one. It only stands to get you in trouble, I think. What do you think, Nathan?
Well, considering Troy got voted out for allegedly saying something, maybe that's implying that someone else had said something, I think just outright bold-faced lying probably isn't the way to go here. This whole first round vote gave me so much secondhand anxiety, because people are seemingly, I would be genuinely curious if a single person walked in there feeling like, yeah, I'm really certain about what's going on right now. Everyone in their voting confessionals had something along the lines of, I'm not sure, goodbye. That was the summation of most of it.
And I want to jump on that real quick, because that was my gut as a viewer. I was like, these people, I know it's the first vote, and those are for more or less very paranoid filled. No one wants to go in that spot, very crapshooty. It can land on anybody, but it just felt so disorganized just from what we're seeing as viewers. I'm like, why aren't they more confident in this? I don't know, Jason, Chris, maybe y'all can speak to this, but it really felt like this was a very uncertain first vote, when in theory a name should have popped up as more of a consensus.
Jason, any thoughts on that?
I'm still trying to think. I really don't know. I guess I'm kind of perplexed at that. I never really looked at it that way.
Yeah, it was definitely really fluid throughout the game in general. I feel like it was, people came and were playing hard from go. And I think, trying to figure out who that first vote was going to be, I had zero sense when I was there. As to which direction that was going to go. Maybe the people who were on camera would probably have a little bit more, but I think it was pretty fluid right up until they got into that tribal council.
It was just Go ahead, Nathan.
I do think it came up, this idea of like challenge strength in this first round. I tend to be of the mindset like don't really care, like just vote out who you want to vote out. But in the specific case of Angelica, especially after watching the last few seasons, I feel like I would be heavily leaning towards just keeping the people who are strong physically, because these, as we've seen the last few seasons, these challenges tend to be like, if you get on a winning streak, you can win for a long time. I mean, something ridiculous like Tori last season went like 8 rounds without being vulnerable once. And meanwhile, you have Alyssa going to like 9 tribals in a row or something ridiculous. So that's where my headspace would be, I think.
It's definitely a good headspace to be in. You're definitely accurate with that. It has been a trend in our games that it seems to just be a freight train once that ball gets rolling for the winning team, and they just keep going.
It is so wild here because, like I said, these first votes are like, for lack of a better term, crapshooty. Like somebody could have looked at someone the wrong way, or someone could have made a comment that was misinterpreted, and that's kind of what I'm getting the feeling with Troy here was. It didn't seem like he made any huge social faux pas. From what I understood, it seemed like he was getting along fine. He wasn't argumentative, but it just really seemed like he just made this comment and it got back to Jason, and Jason just took that and ran with it. From what I understand, I'm not too sure what Troy was trying to get at, and I kind of understand where Troy's frustration came from, especially because he's not the one who initiated. He's just voicing what he heard, but that sucks when it lands on you and it was someone else's fault. So I do feel a bit for Troy there.
He shouldn't have gone after alpha male Jason, obviously.
That was a good juxtaposition when Jason was like, I'm not actually an alpha male, so I don't even know why I got labeled with this. I mean, talk to me a little bit about Jason, because he seems to be a little all over the place in these 2 episodes. He's getting labeled an alpha male. He's almost voted out the first tribal, but then as far as episode 2, we can get into a little bit later, he's not even really on the board. So what has Jason's path been like so far? He seems like a really interesting character.
I think that's right there. You said it was character. I think he was trying to identify within himself who he was for Survivor Angelica. So, he gets there and he has this idea of how he wants to play the game, but then he starts to see the faces and recognize the names and the whole concept of our game. And he realizes that I may need to have a different approach here. And I don't think that he really honed in on what he wanted to do right away. And I think he was all over the place. I think that his personality was definitely there at the forefront, but it kind of evolved into different, forms throughout the whoever he was talking with, which, you need to be elusive like that in a game like this. But, it was a bit hectic at first.
I will say, and this is again circumstantial, I almost feel like in a way it's good to survive being on the chopping block early. And of course, it could just come back and bite you and you can go in the next round or 2. But I also feel like there is some positive attributes that can come out of being targeted early, because it almost wakes you up to the, oh, shoot, I've been, I need to push my foot on the gas a little bit more. I've been a little bit too loosey-goosey, or I've been talking a little too much maybe, or I need to play a little bit harder. And I think Jason got a big wake-up call with that. I think being in trouble woke him up to the fact that something he's doing isn't working. So in a theory, he might be able to use this to his advantage, whereas some other people might know, hey, they might not be in danger next vote, but they'll be in danger in a few rounds from now if they're not playing harder. So Jason might have an advantage there.
Yeah, I think, hearing and seeing your name really strikes a chord early in a game like that, like, whoa, and pretty substantially. So you just you got to reevaluate. I think that's where his resilience was there to do that. That's when I bring that up, that's why. It's just because these people, they hear their name, they in a conversation, or they see it in a vote, and it just hits home. And next thing you know, they're making moves or trying to do things to just change things up, whatever subtle ways they can, or even blatantly obviously ways that they can. So part of our theme too. I think we really developed this and also tied in these players knowing that we had to create something where this wasn't just going to be a standard, punch your ticket home kind of game. You were going to be really fighting for things and playing some advantages and idols and twists. And we knew that this would be the cast to do that. So we felt that we had to go all in on that kind of, that scenario.
Chris, speaking of punching your ticket and earning it, we also find out after Troy is voted out that this isn't the last we're going to see of him, at least for a while. Battleback is in play this season. Can you talk a little bit about the decision behind implementing the Battleback?
Yeah, of course. I think, the biggest thing for us is that as we've continued to grow and draw from further geography and things like that with people who are playing the game, it just doesn't sit well with us as a crew to have people come in and try to get here and be essentially done with the game in a matter of an hour or two. So structurally we wanted to create a format that would not only allow people to potentially have a chance to get back in the game, but also leverage some of the campground as well. And I think I won't get into it too much, but you'll see more of this concept of purgatory as we go through. I know you get some of it in episode 2, but it is just a really cool peninsula that goes out into the middle of this lake, and it was just a really cool spot, and it had etchings and trees and some of the remnants of the religious camp and things like that out there, and it was just a really cool spot too. So again, we wanted to try to leverage the new location as much as we could while also giving people an opportunity to continue on if they could, and that was really the thought behind it.
Jason, this is, first of all, I've said in the past, and I'm not just saying it because you're here, I think you're phenomenal at Tribal Council. I really love the way you present questions, and you're not pushing in a way where they'll get defensive about it, but you're making sure that, like, look, I'm going to ask these questions and I want information. I'm not going to push you for it, but you're not going to let them just get away with saying something absurd or ridiculous. And I think the players feel that. I think they feel comfortable with you enough to tell you information. And I think that's really hard at Tribal trying to navigate, because players, want to keep their cards close to their chest. They want to be cagey. Talk to me a little bit about this tribe in particular, because the same tribe goes to Tribal both episodes. Did you think they were holding their cards close to the chest? Were they more open than you expected? What was the vibe of this tribe at Tribal Council for you?
So Tribal Councils as a whole are the most nervous thing for me to get into, because I never know how they're going to act, what they want to talk about, how open are they going to be. So I kind of just break the ice and get it going slowly and just start reading their body languages and some of the comments and side comments, and just work with that very slowly and kind of pry them open a little bit at a time until they really start to give me some of the good stuff. Or I pick in on the keyword and just, focus on it until they give me more. I knew going into this season, though, that we would really get some dynamic, moments where people would talk about some things in depth. And it just took a matter of time to get to that. Whether it was just a few minutes into a conversation or a little bit more prying. But this particular tribe, I think, gave us some great stuff all around. They weren't afraid to, wear their emotions on their sleeve. They weren't afraid to talk about how they were feeling, what names they may have heard, what they were feeling, or what they felt someone else might be feeling. So it always makes my job a little bit easier, and it makes me get a little bit more comfortable. This season had a lot of pressure on all of us. So again, going right back to the beginning of the game, having everybody show up, seeing their excitement, and then getting to the first Tribal, it's like, whoa, take a deep breath. I took a huge deep breath before we got to that. I'm like, all right, we got to focus. I always check with Chris. Chris and I are always running ideas off each other. And I'm just like, all right, what do you got for me? Talk me through, he's kind of like my little assistant there that just keeps me in check the whole time, because there's moments where I'm like, dude, I'm stressed. I'm really stressed right now. So
props to Chris and in the whole crew in general for just, we always lift each other up when we're having a difficult time. And, it helps me out. I have the confidence of my crew to really go into a tribal that's fresh and just say, all right, here we go. Let's do this. So, but yeah, the cast, they're as open as I think they're ever going to get. There's not much more I think they're going to give me than what we see.
You have one cast member who literally has chaos on the back of her shirt. So I can believe you in that assessment.
Nathan, what else from this first episode stuck out to you before we head out into the next one?
Well, I would like to discuss the opening challenge.
Yeah.
It was, correct me if I'm wrong with this, it was, I remember that you had to memorize it, then set up the order correctly, and then knock them off a table, and then solve the word scramble. Is that a correct statement there?
Yep.
Parker, I think you've done this before, haven't you?
Yes. Full disclosure, Nathan and I have been fortunate enough to play a game together before. We start on the same starting tribe, and we were the Bellow Bears of that game. We were not winning, to say the least. But our one win came from not this exact challenge, but like one where every person had to do a different thing. Nathan did balance, someone else did another thing, and it ended with a puzzle. I had to knock the blocks off the table. So yes, I could do that part. Now, running back and memorizing, I just memorized my phone number last year. So I don't think you want me to do the memorizing. So that's not where you should put me. But I really enjoy the different facets. I imagine when you guys are planning challenges, especially someone's first, in theory, this could be someone's one and only challenge or immunity challenge. So you want to make it a really good one, make it all sorts of different facets and elements. So I really enjoyed all the different aspects. The word puzzle, though, that would have gotten me. I don't know about you, Nathan. I don't know how I would have done there.
What was the word? What was the phrase again? I remember when I heard it, I said, "There's absolutely no way."
It was your fortune awaits, and what was not on the edit actually was it was something that Jason said right up at the top when we divvied up the tribes. It was very prominent. It was, hey, before we go, I just have one thing to remind you of. Your fortune awaits, type of a thing. So. It was said, and then the other part with that first challenge, and this was all Val Crandall who came up with the ideas. We wanted to introduce the tarot card concept right off the bat, and that's what they were memorizing was the tarot cards, and they were on the blocks, so we were able to kind of get some line of sight conceptually into kind of what was going to be coming in the game right off the bat with that first challenge.
While we're on the topic of challenges, I feel like we should discuss the second immunity challenge, which I think is your big blowout challenge. You mentioned earlier that this location had like a lot of really cool areas, and it was on full display here. You guys practically had a mountain that you were using for the slip and slide.
I take notes for this podcast, and literally I wrote down second immunity challenge. Awesome in all caps. You guys, very much props to you. I want to hear about how this challenge came about. This was just phenomenal.
Well, it all stemmed from our tour of the campground, and the owner of the campground walks us around and goes, I got a really cool spot you guys got to check out. And we get over there, and it's this water slide that they have, and just us as a crew were like, So I grabbed, I think we were there in November giving it a tour, and I grabbed like a little boogie board thing to slide down it, and I made it halfway down, and I was booking, and I was nervous I was crashing into the cold water. So I rolled off the side of it into the leaves. I'm like, this thing's going to haul. We need to do something with this. This is fun. So we knew we wanted water. That was a big thing
moving forward, no matter what we were going to do in any game, any location, was we wanted to involve some sort of water challenge, swimming or just anything to do with the water. We had to utilize that. So when we saw this, swimming pond and that slide, we're like, all right, we need to figure out some challenges around this and how we can orchestrate something, and let's do it early so we can involve a lot of people and really make it a big production. So
You seem surprised that no one in the challenge was actually using the boogie board and everyone was just going straight up.
yeah, we wanted to have it there as sort of a safety net for people that may not have the best skills in swimming. The pond did have some seaweed towards the middle of it, so we didn't want anybody to necessarily get tangled up in it. I mean, it would shred pretty easily, but so we wanted to give people a fair chance to be able to adequately get themselves across too, and maybe not having that extra body friction in the water and sitting on that board might give you an advantage. And I thought at least one person was going to do it, and it just seemed to be that they all said that we're just going to swim it. We just want to do this and get it done as fast as we can. So, but it was kind of it was a safety thing. It was maybe an advantage for someone. It was just there as just because. So
I'm almost wondering if situations like this, the adrenaline is pumping and they see, the third or fourth person in lines, like, maybe I'm not as confident in my abilities, but everyone else in my tribe is not doing that. And I don't want to stand out in any possible way. I'm going to do what they're doing. I don't need a reason to stand out. Or like I said, just the adrenaline was going, they're like, oh, I think I can do it. They're doing it. I can do that kind of thing. So that might've played a part too.
it was probably a little bit of both of that. Yeah. I'm sure it crossed some people's minds that they wanted to use it, but seeing everybody else do that, and there were some really strong swimmers there. I mean, I was super impressed with some of these people. I was like, holy cow, they were just trucking through that water.
I was about to say, was it Pat that basically swallowed the whole lake there? Like he was going ham in the water. I think that was Pat. I
it was definitely Pat.
Okay,
I think we got a little clip, a cutout clip to him afterwards.
That's where I'm getting
he
from.
was trying to clear out from that little incident.
Chris, what were you thinking about this water? Obviously you're a project manager guy. This looks fun from the outside, but I'm sure you're also wondering, like, okay, is everyone gonna get there safely? Is everyone gonna swim appropriately? But it doesn't look like there was any real issue.
No, it was something that we were all really psyched about. I mean, we've been waiting to do water challenges for a long time, and this new location gave us an opportunity to do that. So, we introduced the boogie boards as an opportunity to make sure people had some kind of flotation device if they needed it. We were ready and on standby if we needed to make a move. We have, previously certified lifeguards and, people, skilled in everything that needs to happen if there was anything. So we were pretty confident that there wasn't going to be any kind of concerns there. And we talked to people and made sure that people were comfortable with what they were doing and things like that. So we were excited to be able to use the water slide and how we were able to integrate that in, knowing that multiple people can't go down it at the same time. So how do we create a structure for this challenge that allows for the one-on-one, and then how do we take it from there? So it was good.
I've also, this relates to the challenge. I've never seen anyone like Jason make such a big deal out of rock, paper, scissors. Oh, gotta take a break, making a whole scene out of it. I'm really glad that made the episode, because it cuts back to what you were saying earlier, Jason. He's definitely being a bit of a character. I'm not saying he's putting it on. This very much is probably his sense of humor, but that was a fun little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, it's rock, paper, scissors, and it was just such a small part of it. Was a big part, but a small part. It's like a rock, paper, scissors. Come on, And so they really made the best of it, and I really appreciate their attitudes towards what we provided for them. And it actually made it a great point in the episode. I think it was fun that they had their fun with it, and it gave a distinct advantage for that first person too. So it all worked out. It was really cool.
Nathan, I can't tell if just based on these first two episodes. Oh.
That's
I'm
true. Sorry, man. I had to show that one.
No, thank you. I'm glad you did. That's true. Nathan, I want to ask you, I can't tell from these first two episodes if it's just the tribes are relatively matched with the physical aspect and the, running and memorizing, but it's the puzzles where the green team is lacking. Do you think the purple team has just been better at puzzles, or has luck just not gone onto the purple tribe side yet?
I forget who. I think it may have Ty who was talking about this in the first or second round. It was mentioned that momentum is such a big part of these, and I think that plays a huge factor in this. You're less stressed from having to vote someone out. You get some time to chill beforehand. You have more confidence. There's less pressure because you're not overcoming a numbers discrepancy, and you also can sit someone out who might not be as good. So I think a lot of it's just momentum.
That's true. That's a good point. And they're two different kinds of puzzles. First of all, I've talked about in this podcast before, a lot of these Angelica challenges are ones I would want to be a part of. I would definitely want to be a part of this one. This one was just super cool. I would be really bad at that puzzle. I've seen that puzzle on Real Survivor and other LRGs, and it's never made sense to me, and it hasn't made sense to me after watching this episode. So I definitely have some condolences for the people who took on this puzzle. I think it's Insanity Tower, Nathan. Is that what it's called? Or Instant Insanity, something like that. Yeah.
I would be horrible at these kind of puzzles. I felt so bad for poor Troy. He gets voted out first, and then he's greeted by 3 logic puzzles. And to me, that's like just an absolute kick in the teeth. Like, not only do I have this mortifying experience, but then I have to solve these puzzles. He rocked them, though. I would not have been able to. Parker, is this the kind of thing you would be able to do, you think?
Oh yeah, I scream like I can solve a logic puzzle like with the snap of my fingers. That's just the vibe I give. No, like you give me enough time, maybe, but that's not something that just comes natural to me. I'm not solving. I'm not that kind of thing at work. Problem solving. So I wouldn't have done very well. But speaking of Troy, I really love this inclusion in the episode. Did you guys give Troy a camera? Is that what he's recording on when he's by himself in purgatory?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
I think it's really fun. It gave me vibes to Edge of Extinction of when they are just filming them so close. That's a cameraman there, but Troy is filming himself. I thought it was a fun break in the episode, getting to see, oh, here's what Troy's up to. He's having a good time. He's making the most of it. Depending on what personality is there, you might not get much from that. That's entertaining necessarily. Not that what they don't have to say is important. Just Troy was able to crack some jokes at his own expense. He's excited. He's ready to burn the game down when he gets back in. I thought that was a really fun inclusion in the episode.
Yeah, it's also very humane of you all to outright tell him that there are no idols hidden here, or else he would have gone insane.
Probably.
Yeah, and just on the topic of Troy and Purgatory, huge shout out to Brian Klein, who he kind of owns Purgatory and what was happening with our cast members who were there, and had an awesome flavor to what was happening out there. I'm sure you'll see a lot more of that coming forward, but that was all Brian. The Survivor Angelica Godfather won, so it was a lot of fun.
So go ahead, Nathan.
I can't remember which round it was in, but I do remember a confessional from Jordan where she mentioned that she found some tokens for either the voodoo bank or the fortune teller booth. My first thought was, I'm glad Andrew wasn't on this season because he'd be looking for tokens on the roof of the cabin. But my second thought was, so you just had a lot of these lying out for people to find throughout the camps and cabins and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so that was the layer of social currency, right? So the tokens were the healings and hexes that you would be able to apply to the voodoo bank, and they were kind of woven in, hidden around camp, and there's other ways that you'll see for people to obtain those as well. But yes, those were, they were scattered around, and then there were some other vehicles to earn those as well, and then you could use them to dial up or dial down fortune or misfortune.
As a huge, as someone who, I'm not a huge board game fan, but I'm friends with people who are big into board games, and I've played with them. All of this stuff of the hexes and the blessings and all this, the tokens, it's very board game-ish, but in like a good way, where there still is an element of luck, but you can improve your odds through these tokens. I don't know. I just find it interesting.
Yeah, we didn't want them to be overly powerful or hurtful, but to just be able to dial it up and dial it down a little bit, and just keep that undertone of, currency in the game. I mean, the thought was, hey, will we see people conspiring of, hey, so-and-so's a challenge beast. Let's put all our hexes on that person and make sure that, if they ever get into that cabin, maybe their odds are going to be very high of getting cursed. We wanted to have that kind of undertone happening throughout the game, just to see, how this cast would navigate through. So yeah, it wasn't intended to be super harmful or hurtful, but hopefully just enough.
Jabbar is gonna get an idol during his visit. This is 2 advantages we've seen in a row. And of course it's all luck of the draw here, with which card they're gonna get. Can you guys give us a teaser? What might maybe not exactly what they are, but how detrimental would the curses be if one were to get one, would you guys say?
They're pretty detrimental.
Okay.
And I think we touched on this before, that when we come up with a concept or an idea or an idol or an advantage, we really want to see it be played and come to fruition. So we thought long and hard and spent a lot of meetings on how we can get these to really get into the game and also come to fruition. So between the cast we have, the theme we have, and the amount of things we put in, we really created an opportunity for things to come out to the forefront based on how we worded, these blessings and curses. So Chris could probably elaborate a little more without giving away too much, but I think that we really made sure that we were going to see these have an impact on the game.
Yeah. Just to build on what Jason said there, I think to your point, I mean, the blessings were the easy things to come up with. Like, those are, mostly the advantages you're probably familiar with, across the years. You could take a spattering of those with a little bit of a twist, and they're pretty straightforward. The curses were definitely challenging because we didn't want to crush anybody's game through a curse, but we wanted it to be impactful, right? Not desirable, but not, oh my God, someone got a curse, they're basically going home. And I think we found that balance in the game. We'll let some of the curses play out, so people can see what they are. There's some that may be a little bit more fun than super hurtful, and there's some that are probably pretty hurtful, depending on when they're introduced too. I mean, some of it's where do you stand with the numbers at that point? Is it pre-merge, post-merge? There's a whole bunch of different factors that go into it, but the curses were definitely the challenge for the crew to come up with, because of that balance that we were trying to strike.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, based on the rules you laid out earlier, the next person who goes into the booth, let's say they get a blessing, it will not be an idol or a vote cancel, because those have been taken out of circulation temporarily. Is that correct? That's
correct. Mm-hmm. That is correct. Until, again, there's only so many that we had. So at some point we may need to put those cards back in the deck. So there was a lot of math involved in how we structured all of that I'll save you guys and everybody who may be watching from, but it was
whoa.
constructed in a way that, took everything into account.
This is really, really specific. I know it might seem kind of weird, but like, so the next person who comes in, will they see that there are 6 fewer blessing cards and curse cards when they're drawing from each deck? Oh, so did you remove curse cards or add blessing cards in that case?
So we would remove the copies of the cards that were picked. So, if there were 48 cards in the deck before, after shuffling up all the blessings and curses, the next person in after that would have had 46 or 45, because one of those cards would have got taken and the 2 duplicates of that would have been removed. So they would see a fan of 45 that they would essentially get shuffled together, and then we would draw from there. So it's just when they're taking their 3 blessing cards or however many blessing cards, they're drawing from a smaller pile at that point.
Okay.
And then they'd be drawing from the larger pile of curse cards before they get shuffled together.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I was just curious about that.
I was about to say, Nathan, it might have been very specific, but this is the right place to ask. This is the kind of
Yeah.
stuff that I like to know about. And I know you guys put in a lot of time anyway to figuring it out. So it's probably like fun to maybe revisit what you were thinking in these moments. So I'm glad you got to ask about that. So we are going to get to this vote, again, losing back to back, not a good feeling. I was surprised though, and I followed the episode, so it wasn't like I was confused, but I was a bit surprised it landed on Melanie here. I didn't see any indication that it was going to be her from the first episode, and it seemed to fall through this time around. So, Nathan, where do you think it went wrong for Melanie here based on what we saw?
I don't know. This tribal, I'm sure Jason mentioned earlier that he never knows like how forward or coy these people are going to be. This tribal council basically immediately Melody's like, it's either me or her. It's going to be one of us too. So I bet you were excited, Jason, when the cards got placed on the table that fast.
Yeah, and I had no idea what was coming. And so I'm thinking to myself, all right, so let's just kind of, take a step back to the previous tribal. And here we are with this information that, okay, well, this is going to make things a lot easier. So let's have fun with this and let loose, And it definitely unwound quite a bit.
What does it say about the state of this tribe where after 2 votes already, we still have yet to have a unanimous vote? I mean, normally either the first or second you get a unanimous vote in a tribe this early on, but this tribe is yet to vote all the way together. So is this really a divided tribe?
It has the ingredients to be divided, but I feel like I don't know. There was parts of me that felt like they weren't, but also at the same time, I think that they just really wanted to. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like sometimes they want to make this quite a showing, and the conversations that get had, maybe they were had in a way that, oh shoot, I didn't really think about that. And it has implications on the tribal or what they really say, like they want to be in front of that camera and say, this is what I think. And next thing you know, they're talking to their tribe mates about it, and it becomes an idea that comes to fruition. And next thing you know, somebody's going home because of it. So I don't know. I don't get to see all the behind the scenes. So a lot of it for me is still fresh and early. Early on, I used to ask for little tips about like, what are you guys hearing? What are you guys seeing? The camera guys, and now it's like, I kind of like not knowing, so that when we get to tribal, it's just a true, raw, authentic, tribal council on my part, because it keeps me from having to navigate areas that, might be questionable as far as me pushing some sort of a subject if I know something. So, I would always try to obviously omit certain things, but, not knowing now is 100% guarantee you're going to get the most authentic tribal council you can ever get. So.
Mark actually adds some insight into this. Let me see if I can pull up the comment. Show. Sorry, StreamYard's giving me some issues right now. There we go. From behind the camera, they're struggling with the short amount of time before tribal and having all the conversations they wanted to. Which, that's kind of what I got the sense of as well. With losing 2 times in a row and them having so little time to kind of rebound from their previous loss. Um, Last year, you had Chaz who volunteered to go first, so they could all kind of rally behind that idea. And I think I could be wrong on this. I think it was Chrissy who made like a really pivotal error in an immunity challenge. So the other tribe had a really had a fairly straightforward vote with that as well.
Oh, poor Chris. Never going to let that down.
But here, no one's really made any obvious target of themselves, so they're kind of grasping at straws, seemingly.
Yeah, I think you're right, Nathan. And I mean, it's a fast-paced game, and the schedule is aggressive, and that can ultimately lead to some pretty live tribals, which is never a bad thing from our perspective. If those conversations need to be had, and we can get them all in one place, that makes for good watching. But I think. I do think it was pretty live. I think, a couple people knew their names were out there and they were fighting.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that goes back to, I guess, I don't know if I explained it enough in the right way, that what I was trying to say was just how they're bringing certain things to their confessionals, and they may not always get the opportunity to explain those things to other people as they're there with someone. Like, here's what's on my mind, or here, let's have this conversation. And then that may be it. What you saw on the camera was it, and they didn't get a chance to go and talk to someone else because in the background they're hearing, hey, it's time for tribal. And so, those ideas are there, but it might be still premature for them in a way that they haven't been able to talk to everyone. So it kind of plants the seeds for some things to happen at tribal. And I kind of like it that way, that they get a certain amount of time, they get to do some confessionals. It's an opportunity for them to talk and strategize with other players while they're in front of the camera. So they're bringing these ideas, but they don't necessarily get to finish their idea with maybe somebody else they want to have a conversation with until they get to tribal, or maybe never at all. And next thing you know, someone's going home because of something that was said. And they want to bring these great topics and ideas up in front of the camera to be heard and hope that it makes the edit or the cut. And sometimes it does or doesn't. So there's even a lot that the viewers or even us as a crew don't know happen behind the scenes. But I do think all of that in the fast-paced game helps create.
Oh no.
There's Jason. You can hear us all right, Jason?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it was no problem at all. So I was going to add on to that as well, is that one thing I appreciate about this from a viewing standpoint as well, and I'm sure you guys do from a production standpoint, is normally the go-to strategy in a fast-paced game like this, and not is right out of the gate, this is our 4 or this is our 5 in this case. We're 9 people, 5's the majority. Now they may not necessarily be the 5 people that are the closest or the best allies to have, but this is the 5. This makes sense. We're just going to go through that. We don't want to be voted out. Where I don't get the sense this tribe has the clear majority. There's clearly like some 2s and some 3s in the bunch that are getting along well. But from my standpoint, I appreciate that we're not just getting the straightforward, like, oh, this is we made a pact 10 seconds into the game and we're just going to go from there. So I do think that's what's leading to a lot of fun, chaotic tribal councils as well. I'm surprised about that, but I'm definitely not complaining from an entertainment standpoint. What do you think about that, Nathan? I feel like I've seen a lot in like these fast-paced games, like the 4, the 5, whatever is found out right out of the gate. So I'm a little surprised we're not seeing that here.
Well, in this case, it's kind of interesting because pre-game relationships are somewhat inevitable in LRGs to a large extent. But in this season, it's a little bit weird because there are some obvious like pre-game relationships that are positive, but you also have some that are kind of uneasy. And you get the sense that some of these people feel a little bit irritated that they're even lumped in with other people because they have the stigma of knowing people without the actual comfort of really being comfortable with them or having a solid alliance with them.
Yeah, I think it was Matt, wasn't it, that said it's like I know someone over there that greatly screwed me over in another game, or that might have been someone else. So it's interesting. It's not all positive pre-existing relationships, it seems, in this cast.
Yeah, and we kind of know that too going into it. We talked to them about, games they've played and opportunities that they've found and where they've placed, and what we've watched some of the seasons that these players have been in to get an idea of how they interact and how they are on camera and how they interact with other people and just challenge performers and things like that. Like, that's the advantage of this community, is now when we're casting people and we see names come up, don't think that we're not researching you and figuring out how you are, because we're doing it. And part of our planning was, we've got these players from every end of the spectrum in the LRG community, and then a couple of fresh faces too, but they really brought their game, and we knew that it was going to create some instances where it would get fun and create the drama or the excitement or the fireworks that we were looking for. And just putting them in a scenario where it might force them to try something different, try a different social aspect of it. Maybe, they knew going into our game, man, I've seen Survivor do this challenge a few times. Angelica do this, I better get good at that. And, maybe they're really terrible at other things, and they focus on a few of our challenges thinking, all right, they're going to spin this one way or another. I need to know it. So we really wanted to see what they would come up with. And then again, our whole theme and our whole concept was, you can come in as prepared as you want, but when you deal with these blessings and curses and hexes and heals, it could take your game from one level to another, and it could be a good or a bad for you. And that was our way of kind of working around and navigating around the connections and the pregame connections that people had. But we, by no means are we afraid of that. We try to limit it as best we can, but we also create it when we want it. So this was one where we wanted it. We weren't opposed to having people that might know each other. And there's games and there's opportunities where we're going to want to cast completely new people and hope to, that's everybody's dream, is to get 100% new cast every time. But there's a lot of times we don't want that too. So I think we balanced it as best we could with this one.
Oh, like you said, their pre-existing relationships are almost inevitable. It's a small community. But like you said, I can tell Angelica takes a lot of time to look into it, ask questions about it, and you're not going to fill a cast with like 16, 18 best friends. That's not going to happen. So, some
that might
games
be interesting though. Do that.
Well, that might be interesting. That's true. But y'all aren't going to do that type of game. But it's some games unfortunately maybe don't have the luxury of being able to pick from a lot of people. Maybe they don't have as many apps, or they're not as well known, but you guys have the ability to pick from people. So I really appreciate that's something Angelica does, because everybody having a pre-existing relationship isn't the most fun thing in the world. So I appreciate that y'all take the time to look at that. But you're right, Jason, it can also lead to some conflict as well, depending on which ones you pick. So it's not the worst thing in the world. If we were to look at this tribal council, clearly Melanie had a lot of fight in her, which is always respect. You don't want to just go home not trying anything. Jason, from your perspective, was the vote always going to be Melanie no matter what she said here, or was there something she could have said or done differently at tribal to maybe change the tide?
That's tough. I feel like she knew she really felt it. Her emotions and her fight were as real as it gets. And I think that she really knew. And I think her gut instinct was really accurate, and, from what she was seeing and hearing. So I don't necessarily think it would have gone any other way. I think that they wanted her gone. So I think that was just how it was going to be.
Nathan, was there anything else from episode 2 that stood out to you before we get into closing remarks?
There is one really lingering question that I think all of us are in dire straits trying to find the answer to. Did Troy get his bottle of wine?
Is there wine in purgatory?
I think you guys may have to sit tight and wait to see how that plays out in a future episode. Oh my gosh.
Do we not have enough, to be continued? We need a to be continued on that as well.
Oh man, yeah. Honestly, Purgatory, like I said, I won't speak for Jason, but my guess would be that he's probably in a similar boat to I. There's some of what went on over there that we're going to see when these episodes come out, just as you guys are. Quite honestly, when we are so dialed into the game operation of what's going on with challenges and tribals and, just logistically speaking, like where these things existed in the campground, we're not close. So one of the things we dealt with as a crew was just using that first Friday to really get our bearings about us on how to be efficient with moving people between locations and setup and things like that. So we were really dialed into that aspect of what was going on over the weekend, and we're excited as everyone else to see what happened over on Purgatory. We've heard stories. They may or may not have involved wine, but I'm curious as well.
Yeah. I mean, I share the same thoughts as Chris. We really didn't know too much what was going on, other than little snippets here and there when Brian would come up and just say, here's kind of what's been going on, but nothing really in depth, and the camera really tells all. So it's exciting to see it. And from my perspective, and Chris, and I'm sure a few others on the crew, that we just don't get to see all these things. We have people setting up challenges. We have people setting up tribal. We're constantly on the go, so we miss out on a lot of things. So, seeing this for the first time and seeing Brett's edit really brings it to the table. And, once in a while, Brett will say, hey guys, check this out. You should see what they were saying here. And, it's neat to see all these things. There's just, I can't imagine how many hours of footage, Brett has to work with. And I believe he said too, just for the first episode, he was somewhere near between 50 and 60 hours of just edit time, just because there's so much material to work with.
Well, that's about it for these first two episodes. Jason, Chris, was there anything else you guys wanted to add, either about these episodes, maybe tease us for the future, maybe just talk about the season as a whole? The floor is y'all's.
Oh, you're going to have me go? All right. Season as a whole, I'm going to say it was 100% success. I think we had a ton of fun. It's a really exciting season. There's a lot of things that come to play. We've got a dynamic cast that brings everything you'd expect in a game of Survivor. Our location, Letchworth Valley Campground, was absolutely amazing. We're already planning for 2024, and I can't wait to get back there and just get on site. And now that we know the layout, the footprint, and everything, our game will only continue to get better and grow and evolve with our ideas and concepts and things that we do there. So, I mean, I can't thank everyone enough. Our crew, the people that apply, everybody. We give it all out there because we love it. We enjoy it. We have fun with it. And it just makes it that much more exciting when things go the way that you expect them and want to. And I think a lot of that comes down to our crew. We really put together a great package, and we work together. We all know every avenue of the game. So it's really helpful to have each other to lean on. And, it really helps when we have issues, whether it be through the logistics of the challenges or even our players have, we get players that, they get emotional and they get voted out. And we have people that are there to help them out and boost their morale and, give them some nourishment and food and have a good time for the weekend, for the rest of the weekend. So the season as a whole, it's really awesome. I can't wait to see what else Brett comes up with his editing. And, I just think that everyone is going to really enjoy watching this cast just develop themselves and grow throughout our season.
Yeah. Well said, Jason. I'll just, a couple things. It doesn't disappoint. I think we go in as a crew every year, hoping for the best, and you put things together, and sometimes they play out, sometimes they don't. I think this lives up to the expectation that we had. And, as Jason said, huge thank you to everybody on the crew and just the community in general. Thank you guys for helping out with these types of things and getting the word out there. But, the cast this year absolutely kills it too. So there's so much personality and it's, I won't spoil it too much, but I don't think, y'all will be disappointed with interviews and what happens in fortune teller land and in challenges and tribals. There's some action to come. It's going to be good.
Well, you all heard it here first. Angelica 2024 hopefuls. Not only build up your swimming for next year if you're planning on playing, build up your tolerance for children voices over the radio. You know, if you have an issue there, you might need to work on that. But no, truly, thank you guys both for joining us. I've loved Angelica since I first started. I'm very fortunate that Nathan and I are lucky enough to do this podcast and talk about it, and every week meet with some great new people, either people I've already met and get to grow those bonds with, or just meet new people. So I'm really excited for this new season. It's good to be back. And Nathan, that's all I had. If you had anything else.
No, I'm excited for the rest of the season, and we'll see you all after the next couple episodes. Until then, practice your puzzles.